In this video, we talk about how God wants to heal individuals who are in an unmanageable relationship with sexually stimulating material and are choosing sexually acting out behaviors. Acting out is a therapeutic term which describes how someone who is not developmentally whole seeks to express themselves. These behaviors are designed to hide the character flaws that cause them, and such choices of action disrupt an individual's ability to have authentic, supportive relationships. God views you as a change agent for times like this who can help many of you learn about the different aspects that are part of the most effective recovery programs. May God bless you as you open your head and your heart to honor His desire to use you in this way. The ministries our team represent, who work with churches regarding helping others with porn use and problem sexual behaviors, want to prepare you to guide you to help those who are hurting, harming, and hopeless. Like a diamond has many facets, the human struggle that a minister enters into in their attempt to assist others are quite varied. Each seminar we offer seeks to prepare you in a specific area that others may need assistance in. This series can be used to train your staff, open up discussions among your church leaders, and to share with those who are in the midst of this nightmare. Now let's take a moment and look at God in seeking to heal those He loves from porn. God wants to lovingly help those who struggle with porn recover. Now, for this recovery to take place, it requires a humble attitude that willingly confesses the individual's lost, sickness, and unmanageable state. We have many thoughts and emotions and actions that become associated with porn use. And so it's not just whether or not you turn on that computer, but it becomes a whole group of areas that are connected to that particular choice. Recovery uses programs that deal with all of one's development. God created you to be a whole person and wants to fill those empty aspects of your identity, not with porn use, but with more of who He created you to be. God sees that porn's availability and prevalence in our culture needs to be acknowledged and dealt with directly and lovingly confronted. This encourages us to speak the truth in love to those we are leading so that they can come to terms with what they're struggling with. We need to share our belief that porn use is not more powerful than God, and that if they bring to God this area of their life where they're experiencing constant defeat, they'll be able to feel His redemptive love and transforming power. If Jesus came today, who would He have to dinner that would eventually offend us? And oftentimes, if you look at how you'd answer that question, it is probably related to sexuality and some aspect that makes us feel uncomfortable, that would cause us to want to judge and completely write off another individual. And yet Jesus came to heal those who are sick and find those who are lost. We need to extend grace to other people with their struggles, or what's going to eventually happen is we're going to eventually start to hide some of our own struggles because our harsh attitude towards them is going to be turned against ourselves. This is going to cause us to avoid our own sense of inadequacy. Recognizing that our porn use has a defensive motivation, we need to learn to look at what causes us or draws us into porn use. Why was that addictive response chosen among all the other positive or negative ways we could have learned to cope? Was there past sexual abuse that led to a need to be hypersexualized, or some other unresolved trauma that we're using sexuality to cover over? Dealing with this issue requires that we share with others when we fail, how we are tempted, what we have done that works, and what they can do to help us. This means that we need to help those who are struggling pick up the phone right before that moment they enter into that particular routine and seek help to deal with what is pre-causing or setting up the kind of mindset that causes them to want to seek further porn use. Since most of porn is participated in secrecy, part of any restoration process necessitates that the individual develop accountability relationships with others. It is necessary and essential to be involved in same-gender support groups dealing with porn use so that recovery can occur in a safe and confidential environment. We know this, that in helping those in recovery, two different processes must be dealt with at the same time for positive change to occur. Recovery 1 process focuses on stopping the person's addictive behavior so that they can be fully present to some of the causal issues that long ago led to being able to be involved in porn use to begin with. When a person is high or a person comes to group, let's say drunk, okay, you can't help them in any way because they're not fully present to be there to take in any good thing that you would give them. And that is the same way for porn use. The more a person continues to live in this alternative reality, the less they're in this present reality. And as a result, some of the things they don't like about this present reality, where they need to learn how to deal with those things and learn adjustment skills, they're never learned because they so cover over with their continued porn use what's going on. So Recovery 1 says, look, we need you to stop your porn use so that what bubbles up and creates that environment for you seeking porn use becomes available to deal with. But secondly, as that stuff bubbles up, it's going to cause you to want to go back into porn use. And as a result, we need Recovery 2. And Recovery 2 works on the development, the identity development of the individual, and teaches how to examine yourself, discover the underlying causes and motivations, so that they can look at what causes them to seek such self-destructive behavior. And as a result of helping that person adapt to some of the identity struggles they have in that moment, it makes it less likely that they're going to then need to pursue becoming involved in that temporary high to begin with. Recovery 1, stopping the high. Recovery 2, dealing with the underlying causes that create that need for high. So that working on both these issues at the same time, the person is able to deal with. Now, we need to tell you the problem is that everybody that struggles with porn for any length of time or becomes involved in further problematic sexual behaviors, they're all good liars. In fact, we had a group rule, and the group rule was this: when you come to group, we expect you to decide to tell the truth. Because we know, based on your choices in this regard over these many years of sexual addicting yakking out, that if you want to hide what reality is, nobody's going to catch it. And so we basically said, we know that you can lie to anybody in this group forever and get nothing done. The journey of recovery encourages us to engage with God in His Word, learning to pray without ceasing. So when those obsessions come in, we replace it with reaching out to God in a positive fashion, worshiping His presence, expressing a spirit of gratitude, learning to listen for His direction, acceptance of how He all-powerfully uses each circumstance we're in to teach us, how God speaks through our friends and others that are helping us on our recovery journey, and we learn how to strengthen our willingness to submit our will to His. Are you willing to pray the prayer of courage and help other people in your ministry pray that same prayer? This is where God said to God, "Not my will, but thine be done." And part of recovery from porn use is an ongoing submission to who God is. Recovery also knows that porn's ability to powerfully influence us on a cognitive, emotional, relational, and biological basis must be understood, accepted, and dealt with. It is not something to be messed with. It has way more control and power than often we recognize. As a result of its sinful and self-destructive foundation, it can't be compromised with. Its negative presence needs to be respected and adjusted to. At times, it is a power beyond your capability to manage it, and you need to reach out to others in ways that they can assist you in ensuring that you will be safe during certain periods of time in your life. You don't get into the water with a man-eating great white shark and make peace with it. You can't be naive. Believing in the myth of complete self-control and de-emphasizing porn's pervasive consequences is foolish. We need help. We need others. We need God. God helps us by sending others into our life to relate to and support. Since pornography eats away at our competence to love others, learning to help others free themselves from their own porn enslavement has taught many individuals how to remain sober themselves. As we continue to remind ourselves of the damage it does by walking with someone else who is presently struggling. One of the issues I learned in life, having dealt with so many individuals who struggle with affairs, is how an affair, being in love in theory with two different people, a wife and a lover, pulls that person apart, and it's excruciating. And the person says, "I want my wife, but I want my lover too." And when you see that kind of take place and what it does to an individual and the family and the devastation that occurs, it kind of reminds me and it reminds others, these are why God has these principles in life, so as to prevent ourselves from entering into something that would tear us apart at such a root level. When we go to help other people in the area of pornography, it reminds us of the importance of remaining in a supportive community and how important God is in our life. God wants us to be good at our sexual interactions and fully appreciate the pleasure and meaning we can receive in a loving, devoted sexual interaction. This requires us to fully develop how God wants us to communicate our love within a committed sexual relationship. When a relationship like the one we see in Song of Songs is created that mimics God's relationship with us, the church and the difference between God's plan and the results of pornography on our relationships is really quite evident. Building up what contradicts pornography by acting lovingly as God desires makes regression into porn use much less likely. We men need to learn how to take in love from God, from our children, from our spouses, from our coworkers. We need to take in affirmation and value and not look to pornography to be that cheap temporary substitute. And as we learn to get connected to the real thing, who is God loving us through others, we will learn that there's no more space for pornography.